In tonight's news edition, the joint mission of the United Nations and the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in Syria say the transportation of the chemical materials out of the country before the December 31st deadline is unlikely. Clashes between Iraqi police and a Sunni protest camp in the western Anbar province of Ramadi leave at least 13 people dead. And as fighting widens in South Sudan, the humanitarian crisis is getting worse, with some tens of thousands still seeking refuge in United Nations bases across the country. Good evening and welcome to the news. Relatives of Israeli victims of Palestinian attacks awaited a decision from Israel's Supreme Court in an attempt to prevent the release of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails as their families in the West Bank and Gaza made preparations to receive their loved ones. The prisoners expected to be released overnight will be the third group to be freed since U.S. brokered talks between Israel and the Palestinians resumed back in July. The court appeal was aimed at 6 of the 26 Palestinian prisoners slated for release. Family members of Israeli victims said the release of those attackers reopens old wounds and jeopardizes the security of Israel's citizens. The joint mission of the United Nations and the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in Syria said the transportation of the chemical materials out of the country before the December 31st deadline is unlikely. The announcement came due to the volatility in overall security conditions in the country, while a number of external factors have impacted upon timelines. The chemical materials are said to be shipped outside the country via Syria's coastal city of Latakia and destroyed on a ship at sea. Russia reportedly sent special vehicles to help the Syrian government transport the materials from different parts of the country to the port city of Latakia.
Security, I think all parties agree that this is of course a big concern, always, but it also impacts the safety of any convoy and the safety of any effort. So you need to plan to make everything as secure and safe as possible for the civilian population, for those who need to conduct the operation, and then the government needs to plan for any eventuality in the journey from different sites to Latakia and in Latakia itself.
In neighboring Iraq, fighting broke out when police moved to dismantle a Sunni Muslim protest camp in the western Anbar province, leaving at least 13 people dead. Police sources said the clashes broke out when gunmen opened fire on police special forces trying to enter Ramadi, the western city where the protest camp is located. Gunshots and blasts were heard in parts of the city. The gunmen destroyed 4 police vehicles and killed at least 3 policemen in the north of the city. The camp has been an irritant to Prime Minister Nour al-Maliki's Shiite-led government since Sunni protesters set it up a year ago to demonstrate against what they see as marginalization of their sect. Maliki has repeatedly vowed to remove the camp and accused protesters of stirring strife and sheltering Al-Qaeda-linked militants. In Fallujah, gunmen attacked army patrols deployed along the main highway leading to the city of Ramadi. Over to Saudi Arabia, where French President François Hollande met Saudi business leaders in Riyadh a day after talks on escalating tensions in the Middle East that focused on Lebanon and Syria. Hollande said he believed there was plenty of room for even deeper ties between the two countries. He described Saudi Arabia as a top client in the Middle East, with trade standing at around $11 billion. He also offered to help the oil-rich kingdom develop renewable and nuclear energy as it plans for the time when its petrol resources dry out.
As you want to develop other energy sources beside petrol and gas, it is in that sense that all renewable energies can be an area of excellence, and there we can provide the experience of French enterprise. And then there is a nuclear energy which the king intends to engage the country, and there too we are willing to accompany you. We have done it with the great countries such as China, where France has been engaged in cooperation for 30 years, and so we can do it if Saudi Arabia chooses it with the kingdom.
South Sudanese troops were fighting rebels loyal to former Vice President Riek Machar in the flashpoint town of Bor, north of the capital Juba. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni said East African nations had agreed to unite to defeat Machar if he rejected a ceasefire offer, threatening to turn an outburst of ethnic fighting into a regional conflict. The humanitarian crisis is getting dire by the day, with some 60,000 people still seeking refuge in United Nations bases across the country. More in this report.
2 weeks of clashes have already killed at least 1,000 people, rocked oil markets, and raised fears of a civil war in a region ravaged by fighting in Central African Republic and Democratic Republic of Congo. Speaking at the news conference, Ugandan President Museveni told reporters in South Sudan's capital, Juba, that the group has made a very clear ceasefire offer to the rebel leader.
We gave Riek Machar some 4 days to respond, and if he doesn't, we shall have to go for him, all of us. That's what we agreed in Nairobi.
There was no immediate confirmation of the pact from other countries, including economic powerhouses, Kenya and Ethiopia, who have been trying to mediate, and last week gave the sides until December 31st to lay down their weapons. Museveni was quick to praise Kiir's work in fighting the rebels.
I want to congratulate General Salva for defeating this ferocity in the town here. And here they're in the provinces trying to make trouble. But they will be defeated if they don't come for peace.
As over 1,000 people have already been killed according to the head of UN mission in Sudan, the humanitarian crisis is getting worse by the day. 8 organizations, including the UN, have already started sending out appeals for donations. The Embassy of China in Juba, through the Chinese Red Cross, has presented a donation of $100,000.
But what is clear is that it's now a large humanitarian crisis that is unfolding in South Sudan. The ICRC, together with many other humanitarian organizations, will have to respond to this now and assist the South Sudanese population as much as we possibly can.
This UN camp in the capital Juba has become home to more than 14,000 displaced persons. The numbers are expected to go up depending on how events unfold during the coming few days. Aid workers are now starting to get worried. Faraj Looney for the news at 10.
In Russia, at least 14 people were killed when a bomb blast ripped through a trolley bus in the second deadly attack in the city of Volgograd in 2 days. The explosion came a day after a suicide bomber killed at least 17 people in the main railway station of the southern city, 40 days before Russia is to hold the Winter Olympics in the Black Sea resort city of Sochi. Federal investigators said the blast was believed to have been a terrorist act. The consecutive attacks will raise fears of a concerted campaign of violence before the Olympics, which starts on February 7th in Sochi. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for either of the attacks. Hundreds of spectators braved the chilly weather to watch the car jumping championship held in West Sussex in England. Competitors gathered for the 2013 car jumping title and accelerated their cars over a ramp in an attempt to fly over a line of 10 old wrecked cars and land safely on the opposite side. Each attempt was judged on elevation, the reception from the crowd, and of course distance, as only a few made the jump across all 10 cars. In the end, it was a 19-year-old car office cleaner who took the title, having cleared all the cars with the most panache. We begin with the latest on Michael Schumacher's medical condition after he was fighting for his life, suffering severe head injuries in a skiing accident in the French Alps resort of Maribel. Doctors at Grenoble Hospital said Schumacher had been placed in an artificial coma, but contrary to an earlier French media report, said they had not carried out a second operation during the night and were not planning any further interventions at this stage. Here's more on his condition.
Doctors at the French hospital where Michael Schumacher remains in a critical condition say they can't predict his chances of recovery. The retired 7-time Formula One world champion suffered a serious head injury in a skiing accident on Sunday. He's undergone surgery and is in an induced coma. But doctors on Monday said it was too early to say what the future holds.
Tous les traitements qui sont à l'heure actuelle recommandés sont mis en œuvre.
All the treatments currently recommended are in place, he said, and that for the moment we cannot say anything of what will happen to Michael Schumacher.
Michael Schumacher.
Schumacher suffered a serious head injury when he fell and hit his head while skiing in the French Alps. He was wearing a helmet at the time. The incident happened here at the resort of Mirabel. Schumacher left Formula One last year after a less successful 3-year comeback with Mercedes. That was after an earlier retirement from Ferrari at the end of 2006.
And over to tennis and the Hopman Cup tournament in Perth, Australia. France were taken to the doubles before beating the Czech Republic. In the singles, Jo-Wilfried Tsonga put France 1-love up after beating Davis Cup winner Radek Stepanek 6-1, 6-4. Petra Kvitova, however, pulled the scores level with a 6-1, 3-6, 7-5 win over Alice Cornet. Kvitova won the decisive third set after 2 hours and 17 minutes of play. And in the doubles, the Tsonga serve proved decisive as he and Cornet ran out 6-1 versus 6-3 winners over the romantically linked Czech pair Stepanek and Kvitova. We stay with the Hopman Cup. John Isner turned on the power to defeat Daniel Munoz de la Nava to help the United States score a 3-love win over Spain. The giant world number 14, who overwhelmed the Spaniards 6-3, 6-4, is next due to face France's Jo-Wilfried Tsonga in the round-robin tournament on Wednesday. Isner's partner and world number 12 Sloan Stevens was equally impressive with a 6-3, 6-1 victory over Anabel Medina Garrigas. Spain made more of a fight of it in the mixed doubles. They won the first set 6-4 before losing the second 6-love, with the United States eventually winning the match with a 10-4 victory in the super set. And finally, a look at the weather forecast. Cold tonight in most regions with a chance for thundery showers and hail, while winds will be northwesterly brisk. Tomorrow, unstable conditions will continue to affect the country, creating local showers until the late evening hours before rain is expected to fade away. Winds will continue to be northwesterly brisk. The Jordan Valley and Aqaba should expect fair conditions tomorrow, with highs reaching 18 to 19 degrees Celsius. Winds in Aqaba will be northerly moderate, while seas will be slightly rough. The weatherman warns of flash floods in low-lying areas and poor visibility to dust, especially in the Badia Desert region. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here is a reminder of the day's top stories. The joint mission of the United Nations and the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in Syria say the transportation of the chemical materials outside the country before the December 31st deadline is unlikely. Clashes between Iraqi police and a Sunni protest camp in the western Anbar province of Ramadi leave at least 13 people dead. And as fighting widens in South Sudan, the humanitarian crisis is getting worse, with some tens of thousands still seeking refuge in United Nations bases across the country. And that's the end of tonight's news. I'm Rad Liptosh. Thanks for watching and have a good night.